All right, we got a 7.5 gallon P&R trunk tank install on a 04 Cobra. This install will be the same on any 99 to 04 boosted application. We already got the holes drilled. That's pretty basic. Line up the bolt holes, and now we are getting underneath the car to start mounting up this tank slowly but surely. So I'm gonna send the bolt up from the bottom, and we're gonna run a little lock nut setup, seeing how this tank isn't crafted for this car and the tabs don't sit flush with the trunk. Let's take a look underneath. Instead of a threaded rod ordeal, we're just going to send a bolt through the bottom, like I was saying before, and just set up a little lock nut gig up top. Not the end of the world, but shit you got to deal with when you don't buy stuff brand new from the manufacturer and you're going used. All right, so we got the 5/16 bolt sent up through the bottom. We got a washer to straighten it out from the bottom and a washer and nut set up top. Now it's time to set the lock nut adjustment. You're gonna have to forgive me for the shot being blurry, but all you're seeing here, guys, is me adjusting the nut and the washer setup for the tank to sit properly. After this tab is done, and I can move on to the passenger side. That is the bottom bolt for the passenger side tab on the intercooler tank. We just sent a bolt through the bottom, 5/16 thread, and washer to washer and lock nut set up like I showed before. Okay, bolt number 2 is set. Same thing as the other one. We sent a 5/16 bolt through the bottom, washer on each side, and lock nut. Now it's time to set the lock nut for this tab, and then work my way over to the last one. Alright, there's mounting tab number 2 secured. That's the first one we did. This one's over the frame rail, so thinking some welding's about to be required. Nice. Mounting tab number 3 is placed. A little bit of JB quick weld never hurt nobody. And that right there is the lock nut setup for the battery box. Same thing as before, just through the bottom. Here's what we got so far. Alright, rod number 2 is through the car. Time to set my washer and lock nut. We got rod number 2 holding the battery relocation kit in place. Alright, we got the battery box fully mounted. Now it's time to run some wires. Alright, before we go on situating the new wires to the battery in the trunk, you're going to want to take care of the old wires underneath the hood. What we got here in my left hand is my ground wire for my Nation's alternator. This is not going to be included for most of you. So to the right of my hand, you can see the old ground wire from the chassis and the battery ground wire. You're going to want to remove those wires from the battery terminal, put ring clamps on each of those wires, and ground them to the chassis of the car, or if like me, you can put them right back underneath the green bolts. Once you got that situated, you can start tackling the positive wires that you need to address. Here you can see exactly what I just got done explaining. I got ring terminals on all the grounds, and I got them right underneath the green bolt, just like I said. Okay, on to the positive side. Ignore the wire in my left hand. That's not going to be on your car unless you have a Nation's alternator like me. For most of you, all you're going to have to deal with is the 2 red wires connected to the positive battery terminal. Those 2 red wires, one of them is the starter wire. The other one is the power supply wire going directly from the battery to the fuse box bolt, which is right here. What you're going to want to do is remove these wires from the battery terminal, and you're going to want to put a ring terminal on the wire going from the starter that was going to the battery, and you're going to want to put that to the fuse box. I'm going to show you guys how that looks in a second. The power supply wire you can do without. You're going to send a new one from the trunk all the way to the fuse box. Alright, what we're looking at here is the remaining positive wire from the old positive battery terminal location. What that is the starter wire with a ring terminal on it going directly to the fuse box. And above that, that's my Nation stuff, so you can ignore that again. Battery relocation kit, so far so good. Using this little ground wire setup they gave me. And we're going right there to the chassis ground from Ford. Time for the part that I found to be the most rewarding and fun. Running the power wire from the battery in the trunk all the way to the fuse box. You do not have to follow the way I did. I found this to be the easiest. What I did was I removed the rear seats and I ran the wire underneath the carpet that begins right where the rear seat's bottom lip would be, close to the spring release latch. Now, once started underneath the carpet, you can fish it towards the door jamb plastics, route it underneath the door sill. And then what I did was I found a hole just to the front and above the hood release latch that had a rubber grommet that feeds directly into the fender well. That's where I routed the power wire next. Now that I've got it all clean inside the fender well, I made my way up into the engine bay and I routed the power wire directly to the fuse box.